Welcome, everybody. Plenty of seats up in front. I'm Aaron Block, co-founder and managing director of MetaProp NYC. A little bit about us is we invest in and help grow early-stage real estate technology companies. We're based in Silicon Alley, right on Real Estate Tech Row, 21st Street between 5th and 6th. Happy to talk to anybody afterwards if you have questions about the state of real estate technology, particularly in the early stages, which is where we focus. We've got an incredible panel here today. We've got Kevin Maggiacomo from SVN International. We've got Adam Stanley, CIO from Cushman and Wakefield. We have Mitchell Moinian, who's the SVP of Moinian Group. And we have Jordan Knopf, the head of Tusk Ventures. A round of applause. So fellas, I've promised you each that there will be no curveballs, no difficult questions until the end.
Bring it on.
Today we're going to hear about some personal experiences from this well-known panel about technology investments, property development management, and hopefully these folks will be able to help us as an audience decipher some of the hottest topics in commercial real estate technology and beyond. Things we might talk about today include the blockchain, smart buildings, driverless cars, drones, mobility, and workplace strategy. So I really want to know, personally, I really want to know, how did the personal view and the evolution of technology within the real estate tech space influence your personal day-to-day, day-in, day-out life as a professional practitioner in the space? So what has changed, and how has that compared to your expectations over time? Adam, I think you're uncommonly qualified to opine on this.
So I guess if the question is how did the changes in technology in the real estate space affect me personally?
Yeah, as a leader in the space and someone who thinks about real estate-related technology,
yes.
How are these things affecting you as a practitioner?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, and this is important for us, we're service providers, so this is a great panel because it's a combination of service providers and innovators and funders. But first and foremost, I'm a user. So whenever I talk to a client that's an occupier or a tenant, I get it. So I understand their challenges because I understand what I want and the work environment that I'm looking for, and I understand the frustration when I go to one office and I have a different technology experience than when I go to another office. I understand that the world outside is changing so much faster than the world in corporate, and the technology that most of our folks are able to see in corporate is years beyond what they see at home. So personally, I think it's just I have a closer level of attunement, if that's a word. I don't think that's a word, with my clients because I kind of understand the perspective of a user.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Jordan, you're an investor, right? You're one of the best-known investors in New York City in real estate tech. How has real estate-related technology changed your day-to-day work life?
As far as my day-to-day, it really hasn't changed. I mean, I don't use the technology personally. I just saw a great opportunity in an industry that hadn't really seen innovation in a very long time. And so I guess 3 years ago now, saw, the first tranche, I think, of innovators come through, and we're solving some very complex problems. At the time I was at Blackstone, and saw some really great use cases, and ended up taking a deep dive in what was a very, very small, very 5 to 6 companies and a few ideas into what's here now. So it's been great to watch this industry kind of grow up, and excited to see what's coming next. I think that the first group really solved a lot of those initial pain points, and now is whenever they start solving problems that we didn't know that we had.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. Kevin, you, as I understand, and we caught up earlier, run 2 big businesses, one private equity investing in real estate, and one franchise of brokerage across, I think, 4 countries and 200 markets, a big business. When it comes to technology, Do you invest yourselves in new technologies directly in-house? Do you buy out of house? Do you partner? What's your theory on things?
Yeah, so across two different businesses, which are almost completely disparate, we outsource 100% of the time. We were in the technology business from really 1987 through 2008 when we elected to outsource our marketing platform to build out. We developed a single point of entry cloud-based product marketing platform in 1999, which we said resided in space before the cloud became a buzzword. We realized that we couldn't be in the technology business any longer. We could not compete on time and resources and output quality of product with technologists and technology companies who dedicate 100% of their time and energy towards third-party CREtech. But I thought your question at the beginning was interesting, and I was thinking a lot about what you said, and what's really influenced our decision-making, including the decision to outsource to the best third-party products on the planet, is the personal experiences that we have outside of the workforce. To state the obvious, the internet changes everything. We see it today in the increasing choices that people have and how and where they work. And we're all quite familiar with the consumerization of IT. But I find it interesting that I started leading a separate personal and professional technology life before I learned the terms and movements like continuous productivity, BYOD, technology-enabled collaboration, and so forth. I didn't even know that existed. In terms of my personal experience, and I'll give you the mic back, it dramatically changed the products and technology stack that we used at SVN. So my personal journey sort of upended the canon of older IT management practices that defined us at SVN. So.
And from the franchise model to the owned office model, I think we've got a nice comparison here. Adam running technology for top 3 global brokerage firm. How does your perspective on this differ from Kevin's, the buy versus build in-house versus out-house?
It's an interesting question. I don't think we're that different. I think the biggest issue for us is we are first and foremost an outsourcer. And so we have to be very selective and careful about how we actually use outsourcing because, of course, we have these mega corporations coming to us. And so we've basically tried to focus on, what are those areas that are really our core competencies, and that's what we want to do in-house. But now in the technology space, we're finding that paradigm is even changing because the word outsourcing, I think, is just different now. Because we're not, 10 years ago, it was you outsource your application development department. Now it's not really outsourcing. It's going to talk to VTS and Atovia and build out and getting what they've built and customizing it or integrating it into your stack. So I think it's different, and we're doing a lot of that. So our first, we talk about reuse before you do anything else, buy before you build, but build when you can really create competitive advantage.
Interesting. And I think it's really important to understand in our world, and forgive me if I'm taking a leap of faith here, but most of us who play in the real estate technology space, the owners of the buildings tend to be, in many cases, ultimate decision makers and arbiters of technology. And I think we've seen that with some of the recent real estate tech successes, VTS you just named being one, where when the owners start getting on board, then the brokers and others start getting on board. And so we're very fortunate to have Mitchell here. Mitchell, from an owner's perspective, what technologies do you care absolutely nothing about?
We love all technologies. No. Well, first off, Aaron, because sorry for the tangent, but this is my first Disrupt, and I'm so happy to be here. And Mariel, thank you for having me. But I know this is the second one. I just wanted to get an idea, because I'm not clear, how many people here are tech and how many people here are real estate? Just so I can get an idea of who we're talking to, especially you people in the back. Get in here. But if you're a tech person, could you raise a hand just for all of us to get an idea? And then should I assume everyone else is real estate hands? Okay, there are some people that don't know what they're doing. I got it. So we have real estate and tech. Your question was, what do I not care for?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
What's played out? What have you had enough of?
Well, okay. Nothing is played out in real estate tech, in my opinion, because we are, not in the beginning, but we're definitely on the earlier stages of the real estate technology revolution, if you want to call it that. I don't think that's an actual term. Maybe it is, but I would say, Aaron, the key is not what's played out and what's it, but we have a bunch of voids for disruption, as we call it, or as I would consider it, modernization in real estate. And people are realizing these voids or these, opportunities, and there are multiple initiatives and multiple startups and multiple companies trying to get in and trying to take over that opportunity. And the question is, to me, is who will actually prevail and who will kind of be the successful, proven concept at the end of that, which we're not there yet because it is new and owners are getting older and new owners are getting older. So things kind of have to just keep moving, and that's when we'll see what is obsolete, what is necessary, what is game changing, and things like that. So I think maybe if this is Disrupt 2, maybe in Disrupt 3, 4, or 5, we'll be able to really answer that question perfectly.
So nothing is played out. You're going on the record.
Instant Messenger and AIM. But yeah, I mean, listen, there are things like that are definitely played out. And I have, not to take too long, but yeah, I have seen inter-office connectivity that I think is played out, sure. But nothing that you guys don't already know. That's what I'd say.
And I think that's really indicative and important to the people who are on the real estate side and less the technology side of demonstrating how early we are in this evolution
from an
of real
ownership
estate.
perspective, I'd say that, not generally speaking.
I'd really like to start with Kevin and move towards me, asking one question, and you only get a one-word or one-phrase answer to this, way off script here. But if you were to pick one real estate asset type or one geography, so either asset type or geography, that you think shows the most promise for future exploitation of real estate tech, what would it be? For example, is it office? Is it single family or multifamily residential? Is it industrial? Is it retail? Is it New York City? Is it San Francisco? Is it London? Is it Mumbai, which are some of the cities that we're spending a lot of time looking at? From your perspective, if you have to pick one, what excites you the most going forward with real estate tech?
So you want me to pick a one-word geography or product type?
got
Eastern
it.
Bloc countries, 3 words.
Did you say that just for me?
I did not. We just opened an office in Moscow, and we're just learning about the inefficiencies that exist there.
Maladies. Mitchell, if you had to pick one, what would you pick?
I'm going to give you a phrase answer. So we as a company do residential, commercial, and hospitality and all of that. I think the sector with the most opportunity right now, or the most demand right now, would be hospitality.
Interesting.
And I would say why, but I'm keeping it to one phrase.
Thank you. Jordan, one, you only pick one.
I'm actually going to go with the one phrase as well. So like anything where I care about how many keys and not square feet. So I'm going to say multifamily and hotels.
You have to pick one.
That's one.
He always outsmarts me.
Multi-family hotels.
Hybrid.
Gosh, black.
Tertiary markets in China. The third tier cities in China have 1 million plus populations.
Mm-hmm.
We've conquered the first tier and the second tier, and now we're looking to tertiary.
Jordan, when you're looking at real estate tech investments, what is the single most important factor that you look for after team and addressable market, which are things that all of us spend a lot of time on and are fairly obvious? And there's a number of professional investors in the room who focus on real estate tech. But as one of the pioneers in the space, what's something that you really pay a lot of attention to when investing in real estate technologies?
So I think at the onset, what it was obviously there's the core components that you mentioned before, and then really, 2 years ago or a year ago, it was what problem are they solving? There's a lot of problems that were very apparent to everybody in the industry: lack of transparency, workflow, and really there was a lot of pain points that needed to be solved. I think it's safe to say that at this point, a lot of them people are pretty far along addressing those. So right now, what am I looking for is I'm looking for that second bucket of successful startups. So, the first bucket is always, all right, here are people solving existing problems. Now, the second bucket is, here is this idea that is going to be really capital intensive. It's going to take a lot of time to develop. It's going to change user behavior, but it's going to show me that I'd rather, use Uber than to stand in the rain and get a cab. And that's what I'm looking for at this point, is something that really somebody identifying a problem that nobody knows that they have.
Is that, I saw Susanna, I don't know if she's still here, from Flip. Is that the type of solution where you're creating a marketplace for leases and allowing people who hold them to be able to get out of them? Is that the kind of reimagination, next generation that you're speaking of?
Yeah, that's pretty close. So, if you can, besides fancy accounting and taking, a liability and making it an asset, that's pretty spot on. But it's, I think that we're headed in that direction. So
that's great. I think that's really useful to a number of people in the crowd. Adam, Cushman will invest in certain places, but more importantly, Cushman will pilot itself or introduce pilots for important clients. What is other than stability, the obvious things one would look at from a corporate perspective, is this company viable? Does the technology actually make or save money for us or our clients? What is something that you look to when evaluating a real estate technology company for a pilot or a test in your world?
Well, first of all, we have actually Michael Letterman right out here is our head of innovation, and he's helping. We actually have 20 pilots underway now. Is it roughly 20? And I've been on the road with a lot of our key brokers around the world talking about some of these pilots. Things we look for basically are things that help our clients connect with their tenants. So if there's something that you have that can make for a richer experience between tenant and landlord, that's a big part of our business. That's something that's attractive. Anything that can help us reduce cost for our landlords or our tenants, since real estate for most occupiers is the second largest line item on their expenses. So we're looking for that, but we're also looking. We're trying not to look for the shiny red ball. And I think that the old guard was anything new and cool was like, wow, let's do that. And now we're really trying to see, the business value. So if I can look at your product and I can see exactly how it's going to improve my EBITDA, then I will actually want to talk to you about a pilot. If I look at your product and see, maybe, it's probably not going to be a priority for us.
Mm-hmm. It sounds very similar to my experiences working with owners of properties who, in my experience, again, are used to looking at asset level decisions, right? How can I wring more inefficiencies out of the cost base? How can I increase my revenue? And if it's not impacting either of those, it's going to be really hard for me to get involved. Mitchell, what's your experience when looking at real estate technology companies to pilot within your portfolio? What are some of the things that are most interesting to you?
We have, so we're a real estate ownership company and a development company, and we do commercial, residential, hotels, like I said. But for us, the tech kind of investment initiative on an investment strategic side is relatively new. So it's less than a year, and by the way, it goes by the name of Currency M. It's kind of the division we started within the company. And I'd say there's two prongs. So there is the experience we have as a company, as a consumer, and how we've adapted or applied technology, and then there's us getting involved. So as us getting involved, a key, as an investor that is, one of our key fundamentals or one of our key theories is that it should really, really be based on fundamental business. Like Adam said, right? We're not investing in leisure or the shiny red ball because that's fun. Maybe, it's nice to sign up to or enjoy, but that's not where we would put our money and our resources. So an example, one of our later ones, and I think some of them are here, is PaintZen, which I think was listed on this, because it's a paint service marketplace. We sat down and we said, you have a Snapchat or you have something like that. What happens 50 years? Nobody knows. But paint, for example, right? What happens in 50 years? I mean, are we not painting walls? It was simple, fundamental questions. Okay, maybe it's not human beings, maybe it's robots, but that doesn't take out the place of the service and the marketplace to provide these things. So when we get involved with investing companies, we're really looking for long-term fundamental business plans. And then when it comes to on the consumer side, which yes, we use VTS, and we're one of the, I think one of the earlier ones. We're looking for the bottom line. Because it is a business, and we're applying it to business, and it has to fit the program in every sense of the way.
It's really neat that our industry is less about chasing the shiny red ball, it seems, right now, and more about bottom line impact. And in a very cyclical business, like real estate, all of us acknowledge is, that may bode very well in the long term, from my perspective for it. Kevin, Mitchell had mentioned something about the next generation in one of his earlier comments. You have a lot of employees around the world. The younger employees, what is their perspective on real estate technology from a recruiting and retention perspective for you? How important is the real estate technology wave in your organization?
Kevin?
Yes.
Are you posing the question?
I think, yeah.
You're talking about millennials, right? I think that our industry is just starting to experience the powerful impact that millennials will have on CRE. So spoken from the CRE service provider side for a full 5-year period. So from 08 to 13, commercial real estate brokerage was simply not a lucrative career opportunity for young professionals. But on the heels of the recession, we started to see the first few waves of millennials. And now it just can't be ignored. And the challenge for us was to answer the question of how an industry led by white males, many of whom began their careers before the internet was tied to commerce, can attract diverse young men and women, most of whom had their first smartphones in middle school. And if I'm not careful, I'll digress too far and talk about diversity in commercial real estate and all that. But considering this, we learned that millennials have different expectations of what makes for a desirable work environment, that they are still ambitious and want to work hard, but they don't equate working within a rigid 9-to-5 schedule as working smart or efficiently. They've also been raised in families where they're part of the decision-making process, work on group projects throughout high school and college, so command and control environments are generally foreign to them. So real-time collaboration environments on the technology side and non-technology enabled become more important. And then finally, millennials are really concerned with ethics and bringing greater meaning into their jobs. They're wired to be conscious capitalists, if you will. They want to do well by doing good. And so to adjust to all of that, long story short, we did a couple things. The first was that we moved all of our ongoing training to the cloud, and that's now rolled out in on-demand form. While we still have in-person training programs 4 times a year, we require that all advisors complete our System for Growth training program online before attending. We provide for flex time with all of our corporate staff and our brokers to do all that. So working from home is not a new concept, and enabling technology is available, but very few organizations, especially in our industry, support it well, and we focused in on that.
Okay, that's great. And is there any interaction with that focus with the real estate tech boom, which the group here is assembled to evaluate? Have you seen any technologies, or has your team of younger employees and practitioners communicated to you anything about what is going on in real estate tech? Or is this really kind of, the point I'm trying to get at with the panel, is this still kind of at the C level, the CIOs, the families, the managing partners level? Is the younger generation getting what's going on here from a real estate tech perspective at all?
I think that the millennials are teaching us more than we care to admit.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, the sad reality is the millennials, where I'm seeing is they don't really want to work for the big corporate guys, and so I'm really competing more with the folks along the window than I am with with JLL or CBRE or anyone else for that kind of talent. And I think it's really our challenge is convincing them that we are a different kind of organization, and that's partly why we do the pilots, and partly why we do more innovative things. It's to try to attract them. The other thing I would say, to Kevin's point, is the technology is just so much of a given to the millennials that they find it strange when we're talking about certain things. So, and I'm only 5 years away from a millennium. No one believes me. But they to them, it's just when we're talking about sharing documents in the cloud, they're like, well, yeah, I mean, Snapchat, that's what we do. And when we talk about like instant messaging, you talked about AIM, but Skype for business, for collaboration, they're like, well, we've been using, all of these different tools and WeChat in Asia. And so I think the hardest thing for us is we make ourselves sound old and dated every time we mention the word millennial. Because to them, they're just them. They're just kids that have grown up with tech.
I think that's exactly right. I think that aiming it at millennial is not the right way to think about it. It's just okay, who grew up at a time whenever smartphones were readily accessible. That's it. I mean, that's really whenever you saw this boom in communication. That's whenever prior to that, you got to think about the internet connectivity and the number of smartphones. By 2020, you're going to have 4 billion people that are going to, the same number of people that have access to the internet are going to have smartphones across the globe. So really, it's not about the millennial, it's about who was born during that time frame whenever this became readily available. And so, yeah, sure, it sounds foreign to anybody who grew up having access to the internet via their phone to communicate any other way, because that's just, to be honest, I mean, that's just not operationally efficient. And I think that businesses are trying to figure out a way to integrate that. I mean, it wasn't that long ago whenever BlackBerry was first being rolled out, across the banks.
But
It's hard to say, right?
Aaron, I just want to add one just a perspective on that might be interesting to people. Well, personally, I think I am a millennial. I mean, I am 27, just to put it out there, and I grew up at the same time as technology grew up, or the consumer technology that we're used to today. I went from beeper to cell phone to so on and so forth, and I think I'm naturally part of that genre. But what, yeah, you're same age. And what I wanted to add, though, just to give color on this, which I think is interesting, is, again, I am like the more real estate person here, so I'll live up to that role, is we have a project that we are in development now. It's called 3 Hudson Boulevard. And hopefully the guys in your office, Adam, know it. And it's a 1.8 million square foot Class A office tower on 34th Street and 11th in the middle of the Hudson Yard. That's beautiful. I won't go into that. But let me know if you need office space. And point being is that...
Or let us.
Yeah, well, let's talk after. And point being is that, we've been marketing this building for about 2 years. It's huge, and we're looking for an anchor tenant. And I gotta tell you, and this is like a behind the closed doors kind of intelligence, that the biggest common denominator, and if you want to picture these meetings, these are 20, 30 person meetings of average age of 40, 50, 60, the biggest common denominator discussed is that word, millennials, right? What are we going to do to attract millennials? Your biggest bank, your biggest company, your biggest software company, your blue chip institution, whatever the gamut is. I mean, these big corporations, of course, location is location, design is design, and they, by the way, energy efficiency, I think, goes hand in hand with this tech conversation. But either way, they appreciate that, which I think is a testament to the new generation. How efficient are we being? How socially responsible are we being in terms of waste and things like that? But furthermore, recruitment, talent, and retainment of that talent is the biggest one.
Makes sense. And one thing that's likely to impact the millennials in their lifetimes, and certainly within real estate tech may have an impact as well, is blockchain technology. And a hush comes over the crowd because a lot of people have no idea what that means and what is the difference between a blockchain and a Bitcoin, and when, if ever, is this coming to the commercial real estate space. Jordan, can you take just 2 seconds and give a really high-level explanation of what the blockchain is, and is it ever going to affect us here as practitioners in commercial real estate?
So yes, I can. It is going to affect commercial real estate. There's no way that I can give a high-level blockchain anything, and 2 seconds, no question. But it's. I think that it definitely will impact commercial real estate. It's going to impact every sort of transaction across all financial institutions, including brokerages, asset management houses, and so on. I think some of the easier use cases that you could see are, directly as they pertain to real estate. On the commercial side is one, the acquisition of foreign transaction, if you're going to buy a building in South America, you're going to be able to seamlessly do it. So no friction, no FX cost, and it's going to be able to really acquire new properties a lot cheaper. And
So if I'm understanding, foreign exchange, like the movement of money concept?
Well,
currency
yeah, exactly.
stuff?
So there basically will be no FX transaction cost. There will be no settlement risk. There will be no other intermediaries. It'll be real time. You pay in your dollars, and they pay in whatever currency they want to use, and the asset will then change hands immediately. Another aspect of it is really the structuring and basically the ability to analyze commercial mortgage-backed securities. So that's one that will be very big. So understanding the underlying risks associated with that and what properties are part of each one of these 6 securities. Another major one is going to be where basically titles are stored. So I saw a company who did a pilot where they took all of the titles in Costa Rica, and they basically wanted to digitize and store all of them on the blockchain. And that was as an anti-corruption movement, but imagine if you basically took, and that's a permanent record. So they're bringing another layer of transparency to this once very opaque market, and those are immediate use case applications that I would say near term.
So foreign exchange, transparency in mortgage markets, and title and conveyance, clarity and transparency.
Yeah, and then I would also throw basically database. You're basically looking at a lot of the ability to access your data in a very seamless and auditable way. So that's.
And from a service provider perspective, to Adam or Kevin, do you guys want to opine? Do you see blockchain impacting your businesses at any time in the, let's call it, next 3 to 5 years?
I think we'd be insane to say no, because things change pretty fast. Right now, I'm not seeing it a lot, and I'm not seeing a lot of activity in this space. I do think that from a transaction perspective, when we talk about moving into those third-tier markets where we're dealing with lots of different people and we need to validate transactions, there may be some value. There may be some implications in the, I guess what I'm waiting to see is what's going to happen from a privacy perspective. And the more the government supported the cloud, the more it was, our clients allowed us into the cloud. The more the government uses or talks about blockchain, the more it might be relevant to us. Right now, it's kind of early to say. I don't know if Kevin's seeing anything. I do see more implications in the retail space, and we don't do a whole lot of retail business. But the retail multifamily space, I could see possibly more benefits of that audit component of the blockchain, but I'm not sure if it's going to make it to commercial anytime soon.
Mitchell, are you seeing anything so far in your day-to-day interactions that could lead you to believe blockchain's coming into your business in the next few years?
I mean, blockchain is crazy, I gotta say, in a really impressive way. And that's like the opposite of the high-level way of putting it. It's really impressive. It's kind of gratifying in that we're seeing, and it's been making me nervous, honestly, lately, the last year as a business person, the insecurity or the instability of digital financial technologies. And you definitely see, and sorry I'm going too broad, but you definitely don't see the government or institutional kind of readiness or establishment in this space. And I always wondered, how is this going to be fixed? Because this is the future, or this is now even. We see fraud, digital fraud, wire fraud, tenant payment, that we see all of these issues. And I thought, someone's just going to have to make some kind of security device. But blockchain, why blockchain is interesting, because it actually goes thousands of layers below that, and it's not even from the start. It's playing in an entire different realm and preventing, which is something I didn't think, which is really comforting to me and to us as a company. But if it's a big blockchain/Bitcoin question, we have been asked about taking Bitcoin as rent. Yeah, it is crazy. But that's not what the person thinks who asks it, and or the people. And you have to think. Well, first of all, we don't. We haven't. I don't know any landlords who have. You have so many kinds of variables, though, in that question that are answered. So, blockchain, yes. Bitcoin, not yet. I mean, we have banks, right, that are lending on these assets. First and foremost, they have to be comfortable with that concept. So I can't really make that decision. But we like to take rent however we can get it. So if Bitcoin's the way we're going to have to do it sooner or later, then we're going to be ready for that. And that's something that is a part of our company's every day, is thinking forward, getting ready, and adapting to what's coming.
I really think the first step is to take Bitcoin and kind of put it over here, and then take blockchain and realize that is a completely different aspect of it. It's so it's like, here's a transaction, this is a euro or whatever it is, and then here is a general ledger.
Right,
so yeah, exactly. So it's very different. I think that once people get beyond that and they realize the applications and they see use cases that are being done in less complex, non-financial transactions. Like if you were to sit there and say, all right, we're going to now start recording any handgun sale on the blockchain, and so that every police force out there can immediately access who purchased a handgun with whatever license plate or whatever license number on there, and have that readily accessible, there's a pretty clear-cut use case, not too hard to understand, and then basically you see that the benefit of the audit trail. And you see the ability to, you're not going to fudge this. You're not going to be, there's immediate accountability for every single thing that's happened since you started using the blockchain.
And
but Jordan, what he actually brings up that's interesting to me is it's a reminder that blockchain isn't really that it's not actually as crazy as it may seem, because it's all about transparency. It's the whole democratization of data.
I meant crazy good.
No,
Right?
no. I mean, it's not actually. It's
millennial
not,
talk. Right
it's
there.
not.
I just said the word dope.
These young bucks. But it's really not as earth-shattering as you think about it. I look, Mark, right here. What Liquid Space is doing is it's added transparency into a formerly non-transparent marketplace. And if you think about Uber, it's added transparency to taxis. You know exactly what this guy is rated. You know exactly what you should expect to pay. And you have, so really blockchain is to some extent just an evolution of the sharing economy, which does mean, that's why I wouldn't say it's not going to ever be relevant, because it's, any element of transparency that we can bring into this industry is going to help. Now, as a service provider, whose part of our business depends on some of our clients not having the transparency that we have, that is a challenge, and that's something that we need to think through, and how do we actually monetize that?
I think we're going to transition away from the blockchain discussion, and as a descendant of the original blockchains from Russia, my last name is Block, in case you can put the idea together. It's pretty clear that we're not going to spend more time on that. And Jordan, I think we're also going to avoid additional topics like handguns and wall building and family planning for the rest of the time. But we are going to talk about one really important thing, which is what's going to happen in the next few months. And when we say few, we're really talking about the next 12 months of real estate tech. You guys have uncommonly good perspective. People in the group, in the audience, focus on their particular area of the real estate value chain and may not see as many technologies and may not see as many startups and may not see as many deals. So it's really interesting to hear each of you, if we can start with Adam and move down. In the next 12 months, what are you most excited about from a real estate tech perspective?
Wow. Most excited. I think I'm most excited about the, so for those of you who don't know, Cushman, the last year and a half, we've tripled our business, and we're going to continue to grow. And I think what's most interesting to me is the data that comes with that, not like big data and, but really being able to think through $191 billion of transactions and 4 billion square feet of assets managed, and what does that actually mean? And if you think about it, each of these startups, all of these disruptors, if they can get just a sliver of our portfolio to work, then we can prove their models within months. the challenge for me is just going to be trying to make sure that we can do that. How do we unlock those opportunities to work with these guys and get some ideas out there?
Interesting. Jordan, what are you most excited about in the next 12 months in CREtech?
I definitely think that most excited about is a little bit different than, I think we're going to see a lot of changes. I think we're going to see a lot of businesses that were built on other businesses not really make it. I think we're going to see some of the breakout, first wave innovators really take a run at it and start to challenge some of the larger incumbents that we all know and all are thinking about the same name in our head right now. And that's something that I'm excited about.
Is that beginning with a co and ending with a star?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So I think that now we're going to start to see that, and something that I'm really looking forward to watching continue is the way that people are viewing ownership and how they're going to take that aspect of fractional ownership or whatever it may be, and kind of the shifting views on owning property, and really see what kind of technology comes out that helps enable that and accelerate it. So,
Okay, loaded question. I guess I have two ways of looking at it. First of all, just on a personal level. When I think about your question, and I think about it all the time, it does, on a personal level, it excites me to see that there will be a new regime of successful entrepreneurs. Just flat out. I'm looking at this room, I see the kiosk. So I wish it would be all of you guys, but unfortunately, not the way it always turns out. But I'm excited to see that 12 months from now, some of these people will be poster childs for successful companies in this new space. So that's one thing that I'm really excited about deep down inside, to be honest. But on a professional level, it kind of refers to what I was saying in the beginning, which is we're somewhat in the earlier stage, and what, in my opinion, and what I see there are two things for disruption or modernization, which would be low-hanging fruit, and then maybe the hard-to-reach fruit. The low-hanging fruit are those voids that I talked about that are just obvious inefficiencies or obvious antiquated systems that, yes, it shouldn't take 50 hours to do something that we can now program to do in 5 minutes, and that's low-hanging fruit.
So if I can make sure I'm understanding, is that automating manual processes, which we see a lot in our space today?
Paint's then a good simple example, and that's one thing we spoke about, right? If you want to go paint a house, you would have to call your neighbor or your friend or Yellow Pages, got a referral, my uncle, my cousin, but now it's just Uberized,
Sure.
right? And so it's that fundamental discipline across different platforms. So that's the low-hanging fruit that I think we'll see maybe in the next 12 months or so. And then there's the higher stuff that we haven't even conceived yet, or at least I haven't conceived yet, that is higher up there because it's that radical, like a blockchain. And what the inherent things, Aaron, with higher hanging fruit in my mind when it comes to tech and real estate tech is the adaptation curve, which is tough.
What does that mean?
Right, so what does that mean? So, Paint's then Uber, right? You had Uber. We use the same examples over and over. You had Uber. How long before you knew about Uber till it became a regular part of your life? Right? It's
very, very, very short.
very short for small people like Jordan.
A Tusk Ventures portfolio company. But
Right.
I think that model, it's great that you bring it up, but that model is a little bit different in the sense that to be the Uber of anything, you need to be twice a day. I need to use you twice a day.
Sure. It's let me take that back. It's the adaptation or the comfort level of entering the new way of life that these things bring. And that can't happen in 12 months. And those are things that, like I said, older people get older, younger people are getting older. They have to kind of now fit into the chronology that these things are going with. And once we fall in and match up in terms of where we all are as consumers, that's when the bigger, more impacting things are going to come into play. And that's the higher hanging fruit. And that's when we'll just see all kinds of new ideas, like the big stuff Jordan's going for. So I'm really excited to see all that happen.
Kevin, a last thought on what you like in the next 12 months. What gets you excited with CREtech?
So I too will approach it from a couple different perspectives, and I'll probably echo a lot of what you just heard. But the first is, and this, as you pointed out, is just the nature of the free market economy. But I am looking forward to the industry sort of working itself out. I think it's important from a commercial real estate service provider's perspective that we understand which models, all of which are wonderful, and beautifully disruptive in many cases, it's an overused word, but are sustainable. And it's a bit of a bloody ocean and somewhat confusing for commercial real estate service providers, especially organizations that are of our size. Our brokerage business is just north of 150 million in revenue. We have many fewer resources than a Cushman and Wakefield does, who has a CIO and a wonderfully stacked team. So that's something I'm looking forward to. As far as tech is concerned, I see the effect on property management. How we use buildings are changing. I think that smart buildings that can adapt to the WeWork prototype of one person per square foot, which affects elevators, parking, HVAC systems, soundproofing, smart walls, and so on, are huge opportunities, and we'll see more of that. For non-co-working environments, I too see tremendous business potential in the Uberization of services, like Managed by Q, the provider of on-demand cleaning and other smart services. But as we talked about our personal experiences influencing our appetite for similar experiences at work, I think that we need to consider the profound impact that all of us have had with the sharing economy and the gig economy. And I think that appetite that we've developed will have a significant influence on those category products at work over the next 6 to 12 months.
We paid some attention talking to the blockchain. We paid some attention talking to co-working and the Uberization of services in space. It's interesting to me, because we do a lot of these panels, there was less attention paid to, in this particular panel as we wrap up, some things that we hear a lot about, virtual reality, right, driverless cars, and some other technologies. It just, I think, is more illustrative, guys, which we all talked about, is it's pretty early. There are so many things going on that have the potential to impact what we're doing. We can't even fit a small slice of it in a 1-hour program. We'd like to thank all of the panelists for joining us today at CRE, Disrupt CRE in New York City. It's been a great program. We'd like to thank Mariel, Stephen, and the rest of the crew for hosting us today. I think some of the people may be around for additional questions in a one-on-one environment later. I know there's a good after party hosted by some fun friends later, and we look forward to spending time with everyone. A round of applause for these wonderful panelists. Thank you.
Thank you.